Imagine this for a second, It is a random Tuesday afternoon.
Okay, a Tuesday.
Yeah. And you're packing up your desk, you're handing in your badge, and you are walking out of your office building.
Which is a great feeling.
Oh, the best. But you're not leaving for, like, a 2-week vacation.
Right.
You are not taking a 6-month sabbatical.
Yeah.
You are walking away from mandatory corporate life for good.
Wow. Just entirely done.
Entirely done. And here is the real kicker. Your peers, the people sitting in the cubicles right next to you,
Yeah.
they are still like 2 or 3 decades away from their own retirement, but you are free.
I mean, it sounds like the final scene of a movie, doesn't it?
It totally does.
It's the kind of scenario that feels reserved exclusively for, I don't know, lottery winners or trust fund kids or someone who got ridiculously lucky on a tech startup.
Or, a brilliant Forex trader who just hit the mother lode on a single currency swing.
Right, exactly. The unicorn events.
Yeah. But that is exactly the myth we are breaking down today. Because walking away decades early, it's actually a mathematically achievable reality for completely ordinary people.
It is, yeah. It just requires a highly, highly specific blueprint.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission on this deep dive is to extract those exact hard numbers, the tax mechanisms, and the real-world lifestyle shifts you need to achieve financial independence.
And it is a lot of shifting, for sure.
It really is. And we are drawing our insights today from a single, incredibly detailed source. It's a guide published by Dukaskpy Bank SA titled, How Much Money Do I Need to Retire Early?
And right off the bat, I think we should reframe what this guide is actually advocating for.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because the ultimate goal here isn't necessarily about escaping work, just so you can sit on a beach chair and drink margaritas for 50 years.
Right, which sounds great for a week.
Exactly, but that gets boring much faster than people realize, like way faster.
It's really about gaining the ultimate control over how you spend your days, Whether your dream is traveling the globe out of a backpack or launching a passion project that pays absolutely nothing, or just enjoying small-town simplicity without the crushing pressure of a Monday morning commute.
Yeah, it's about engineering an ecosystem where your time actually belongs to you.
Yes, time. But before we can build the roadmap to that ecosystem, you need to know what the destination looks like.
And crucially, how many miles away it is.
Which brings us to the core concept of the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early.
Right, a movement that has just totally taken over personal finance circles over the last decade or so.
It really has. And what's fascinating here is the sheer compression of the timeline.
What do you mean by compression?
Well, like the standard 20th century retirement model has you working and earning and saving for, 40 to 45 years?
Yeah, pretty much your whole adult life.
Right, to fund maybe a 15 or 20-year retirement period at the end of your life.
The FIRE crowd is attempting to invert that entirely. They're trying to cram a lifetime of asset accumulation into 10 or maybe 20 years of work.
Which fundamentally changes all the rules of the game. I mean, you are walking a tightrope without the immediate safety net that older retirees have.
Exactly. No safety net.
You don't have Social Security checks arriving in the mail. You don't have Medicare covering your doctor visits because those government benefits don't kick in until you are well into your 60s.
Right. So if you retire at 35 or 40, you have a massive multi-decade gap to bridge.
A huge gap where your personal investments have to do, all the heavy lifting.
Which brings us directly to the most famous mathematical equation in the financial independence world, the 4% rule.
The magic number. So let's break down how this actually functions because the source lays out this classic baseline calculation.
Right.
Basically, your retirement nest egg needs to equal roughly 25 to 30 times what you plan to spend each year.
And the mechanism here is based on historical stock market returns. So, if you determine you need $50,000 a year to live comfortably, you multiply that $50,000 by 25.
Okay, so 50,000 times 25.
That gives you a target portfolio of $1.25 million.
Got it.
The underlying logic is that if your money is invested in a balanced mix of stocks and bonds, you can safely withdraw 4% of that portfolio in your first year.
And then adjust for inflation after that.
Exactly. You adjust that withdrawal amount for inflation each subsequent year, and your money should, hypothetically, outlast you. The market growth covers the withdrawals.
But wait, I have to push back on this, or at least clarify a massive caveat here.
Sure, go ahead.
Because the Dukaskpy guide specifically notes that the 4% rule was originally designed by financial planners for a traditional 30-year retirement.
Right, the classic timeline.
So if you are pulling the plug in your 30s, you aren't planning for 30 years of unemployment. You are staring down a 40 or even 50-year horizon.
Yeah, it's a completely different scale.
Doesn't extending the timeline that far fundamentally break the mechanics of the 4% rule?
It does put the portfolio under extreme stress,
Yeah.
especially when you factor in market volatility,
Yeah.
market crashes.
Right.
And that is why cautious early retirees rarely rely on a flat 4% anymore. To account for a 50-year horizon and the added risk of crashes, the modern strategy is to shift down to a 3% or 3.5% withdrawal rate
Oh, wow. Which changes that multiplier equation we just talked about.
dramatically. When you drop your withdrawal rate to 3%, you aren't multiplying your annual expenses by 25 anymore.
What's the new multiplier?
You now have to multiply them by 33.
Ouch.
Yeah, let's look at the math. If you want $80,000 a year to live on, under the 4% rule, you need $2 million saved.
Which is already a lot.
But if you want the safety of a 3% withdrawal rate for a 50-year retirement, you suddenly need over $2.6 million.
Man, staring down a $2.6 million target when you are like 28 years old and making a median salary, it can feel paralyzing.
Oh, absolutely.
It just feels mathematically impossible. So how do we shrink that massive target down to something achievable?
Well, you have to step back and look at the behavioral economics of how you currently live, because most people suffer from lifestyle creep.
Right, making more, spending more.
Exactly. As their salary increases, their expenses naturally inflate to match it. A bigger apartment, a nicer car, more expensive dinners out.
So to shrink your retirement target, you have to actively reverse that psychological trend.
Yes, you have to stop the creep.
This is where I love the concept of the double duty dollar.
Oh yeah, this is a great way to look at it.
The underlying mechanism of cutting an expense is just incredibly powerful for early retirees.
Yeah.
Every single dollar you do not spend on your lifestyle does two jobs at the exact same time.
Right, it's doing double work.
First, it lowers your annual expense baseline, which means it is one less dollar your massive retirement fund needs to generate in perpetuity.
Which is huge on its own.
But second, it is another dollar you can invest today to build that fund faster.
It creates a compounding effect in both directions.
Yeah.
Like cutting $100 from your monthly budget actually accelerates your retirement timeline faster than earning an extra $100 a month.
That's wild when you actually do the math on it.
It is. And the guide suggests a brutal audit of where your money is flowing, not just, skipping a daily coffee, but looking at the structural pillars of your spending.
And the biggest structural pillar is definitely where you live.
Without a doubt.
The source brings up a phenomenal strategy here, which is location arbitrage.
Location arbitrage is arguably the most powerful lever you can pull in this entire blueprint.
Yeah, explain how that works for someone who might not know.
Sure. So the premise is that in a digital economy, your income doesn't have to be tied to your zip code.
Right.
You earn a strong city wage, perhaps through remote work, but you deliberately choose to live somewhere with a significantly lower cost of living.
So you keep your San Francisco or Seattle tech salary, but you move to, like, a quiet suburb in Ohio.
Exactly. Or you take the extreme route and move to a beachside town in Southeast Asia or Eastern Europe.
Which people absolutely do.
They do. The guide points out how far the U.S. dollar stretches internationally. I mean, if you can drop your baseline living expenses from $80,000 a year down to $40,000 a year simply by changing your geography.
You literally slice your required $2.6 million nest egg in half.
Exactly. You chop it right down the middle. Housing generally consumes 25 to 35% of a person's income.
That's a huge chunk.
So downsizing, finding roommates, or just relocating outside of major metropolitan hubs, it frees up massive amounts of capital that can be redirected right into the market.
Cars, too.
Yeah.
I noticed the source calls out auto financing as a major timeline killer.
Oh, it's the worst.
Like, a shiny new car with a $600 monthly payment might feel like a reward for your hard work. But when you run that through the multiplier we talked about, that car is forcing you to stay in your cubicle for an extra 2 or 3 years just to fund it.
Yeah, that new car smell gets expensive when you price it in years of your life.
Seriously.
But a vital lesson from the guide is that your post-retirement spending will not be a mirror image of your current spending.
Right, because things change when you stop working.
Exactly. Certain structural costs just vanish.
Yeah.
You are no longer paying for a daily commute. The professional wardrobe budget disappears.
The expensive convenience meals you bought because you were too exhausted to cook after a 10-hour shift.
Yes, those vanish too.
But on the flip side, I mean, we have to be realistic here. You suddenly have 40 or 50 extra hours a week to fill.
Right, you need something to do.
Your travel, your hobbies, your entertainment budgets, they could easily explode if you weren't careful.
Which is why the source advises against making just one static guess for your future budget. They recommend engineering 3 distinct financial scenarios.
Okay, what are the 3?
First, a minimum survival budget. This is the absolute floor. It covers groceries, basic housing, utilities, and health insurance. Nothing extra.
Okay, the bare bones.
Second, a comfortable living budget. And finally, a dream scenario budget that includes the global travel and the expensive hobbies.
And laying those 3 numbers out side by side, it acts as this psychological grounding tool.
Right.
It forces you to make concrete trade-offs. You can look at the math and ask yourself, is this dream budget actually worth grinding it out in corporate middle management for another 7 years, or would I rather have my freedom today on the comfortable budget?
It makes the abstract concept of time versus money very, very real.
Okay, so you apply these behavioral changes, you leverage location arbitrage, and you shrink your target number.
Right.
But there is a floor to this. You can only cut expenses so far before you are, sacrificing your baseline quality of life.
You don't want to live in a cardboard box just to retire early.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting. The next logical step to secure that target number isn't just about hoarding more cash. It is about income diversity.
Yes. Relying 100% on your stock portfolio to survive your entire life creates enormous mathematical and psychological stress.
And this leads to the math behind what I like to call the $300,000 shortcut.
It's a great shortcut.
The mechanics of this are mind-blowing when you first realize it. The guide points out that generating even a small amount of passive or part-time income drastically reduces your required nest egg.
Run the numbers for us.
Okay, let's use the standard 4% multiplier of 25. If you can build an income stream that pays just $1,000 a month, maybe through dividend-paying stocks, renting out a spare room, or royalties from a digital product, that equals $12,000 a year.
Right.
Because your portfolio no longer has to generate that $12,000, you instantly need $300,000 LES in your overall retirement savings.
It is a staggering shortcut.
$1,000 a month saves you $300,000 in the bank.
And it forces us to redefine what early retirement actually entails. Leaving the rat race doesn't mandate that you never earn another dollar as long as you live.
Right.
It means transitioning from mandatory, stress-inducing labor to optional, highly selective work.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Okay, lay it on me.
If I am still managing a rental property or doing freelance consulting or actively trading, didn't I kind of fail at the whole retiring early thing? Isn't the point to stop working entirely?
I get that pushback a lot. But think of it more as building resilience. Many early retirees spend a few hours a week consulting, or they learn entirely new marketable skills to keep their minds engaged.
So it's about staying sharp.
Yeah. The Ducasby Guide notes that some people pivot to creating online educational content, self-publishing, or learning the mechanics of currency trading.
Oh, right. They mentioned Forex.
They did. And they even suggest a very practical step for that last one, using demo accounts first to practice Forex trading and test strategies without risking real capital.
It's smart.
Right? It is about keeping your brain active while building a financial buffer.
So that part-time income acts as a shield for your portfolio.
Precisely. It protects you against a mechanism known in the financial world as sequence of returns risk.
Right. Let's unpack how that actually works because it's crucial.
It is.
If I retire with $1 million and the very next month the stock market crashes by 20%, my portfolio drops to $800,000.
Immediately.
And if I am solely reliant on that portfolio, I am forced to sell off stocks at the absolute bottom of the market just to buy groceries.
And by selling at the bottom, you lock in those losses permanently. You are destroying the portfolio's ability to compound and recover when the market eventually bounces back.
Because the shares are just gone.
Exactly. But if you have $1,000 or $2,000 of part-time income flowing in, you can live off that cash flow.
You don't have to sell a single stock during the downturn.
You just wait out the storm.
Okay, so the income diversity acts as a shock absorber. But we need to address a massive vulnerability in this entire plan.
I think I know what's coming.
A cost so unpredictable, it operates like a variable rate mortgage on your body. Healthcare.
Yeah. The biggest hidden trapdoor in the American early retirement strategy,
When you hand in your badge at 38, you are also handing in your subsidized employer health insurance.
which people always forget.
And the sheer mechanics of buying private insurance on the open market when you are in your 40s or 50s can be devastating. We are talking premiums of $1,000 to $2,000 a month for a couple.
And remember, that is just the premium to hold the insurance card. That doesn't cover the deductibles, the copays, or the out-of-network surprises.
No, it's just the baseline.
If you connect this to the bigger picture, the rate of healthcare inflation historically outpaces the general inflation of normal consumer goods. The cost of medical care compounds aggressively.
So how on earth does someone engineering an early retirement protect their portfolio from a random medical emergency?
Well, the guide recommends two major defensive structures. First, you cannot rely on your standard rainy day fund for health issues.
It's not enough.
Not even close. Successful early retirees build a dedicated, heavily funded medical emergency stash.
How much are we talking?
We are talking $50,000 to $100,000 parked in cash or highly liquid assets, walled off specifically for health crises.
Wow, 100 grand just sitting there in defense.
A single unexpected surgery can easily hit 5 figures out of pocket, even with decent insurance. You need liquid capital ready to deploy.
That is a sobering reality check for anyone hoping to scrape by on a lean budget. What is the second structure they recommend?
Health savings accounts, or HSAs. The guide flags these as arguably the golden tool for early retirees because of a unique mechanism, the triple tax break.
Let's break down how that mechanism functions because it really is brilliant.
Go for it.
So first, the money you contribute to an HSA reduces your taxable income for the year.
Awesome benefit right there.
Right. Second, you invest that money and all the growth and dividends compound tax-free.
Just like a Roth IRA.
Yep. And third, when you finally withdraw the money to pay for a qualified medical expense, the withdrawal is entirely tax-free.
It is the only account in the entire tax code that functions like this. Triple tax-free.
It's amazing.
And here's the kicker for early retirees. Once you reach age 65, the rules change. The HSA essentially transforms into a traditional retirement account.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah. You can withdraw the funds for non-medical expenses, like, say, a vacation or a new roof, without the standard 20% penalty. You will just pay standard income tax on those non-medical withdrawals, just like a 401k.
It is the ultimate stealth retirement vehicle.
Absolutely.
But before we move off the healthcare topic, the source drops a pretty stark warning about long-term care.
Yeah, this is something younger people totally ignore.
Right, because it is easy for a 35-year-old running marathons to think, I don't need to model the cost of a nursing home.
Exactly.
But assisted living or memory care expenses can operate like a slow leak in a tire, just quietly draining even the most perfectly optimized portfolio over a decade. It has to be factored into the math.
It comes down to anticipating change. So, assuming you've built the portfolio, you've established some income diversity, and you've fortified your healthcare defenses.
Right, the foundations are there.
How do you manage the logistics and the psychology of actually living this out day to day?
This requires flexibility. I like to think of the 4% rule not as a rigid set of train tracks you have to stay perfectly balanced on, but more like a car's suspension system.
I like that.
The terrain is going to get rocky, and your withdrawal strategy has to absorb those bumps.
And the most successful early retirees utilize adaptive withdrawal tactics. When the economy's booming and your portfolio hits an all-time high, you take your 4%. You fund the dream budget.
Louisville.
Right. But when the market inevitably enters a recession, you need the discipline to tighten the belt. You drop your withdrawal rate down to 3%.
So you shift from the dream budget back to the comfortable budget.
Exactly. You prioritize protecting your principal balance over your lifestyle during those lean years.
And beyond just how much you withdraw, there is the incredibly complex logistical hurdle of where you withdraw it from. Because the tax code really throws up roadblocks if you try to retire at 40.
Oh, they do. The government wants you working until you are old. Traditional retirement accounts, like standard 401ks and IRAs, have a penalty wall built around them.
The dreaded penalty wall.
If you pull money out of those accounts before you reach age 59 and a half, you are generally hit with a 10% early withdrawal penalty on top of standard taxes.
Right. So if I retire at 40, I have nearly a 20-year gap where my main retirement funds are locked behind that penalty wall. How do I actually get my hands on my money to survive those 2 decades?
You have to engineer a timeline using different tax accounts. You spend your working years intentionally funding specific types of accounts to build a bridge that carries you to age 59 and a half.
Okay, so I assume the first part of that bridge is just a standard taxable brokerage account
Yeah.
because there are no age limits on when you can sell those stocks.
Correct. That acts as your primary fuel for the early years. But the mechanism you have to manage there is capital gains tax.
Which means I am only taxed on the profit, not the entire balance, right?
Yes.
So if I invest $50,000 and it grows to $80,000, I only pay taxes on the $30,000 of growth when I sell.
Exactly. And depending on your total income bracket in retirement, that long-term capital gains tax rate can sometimes be 0%.
Wow, zero.
Yep. But you also need a secondary bridge to minimize tax exposure if your gains push you into a higher bracket.
Wait, if the traditional 401k is locked behind the penalty wall, what else can I use?
A Roth IRA, utilizing a very specific tax loophole. Because you fund a Roth IRA with after-tax money, meaning money you already paid income tax on when you earned it, the IRS allows you to withdraw your original contributions at any time.
Without the penalty.
Completely penalty-free and tax-free.
Okay, let me make sure I understand the mechanics of this because that sounds crazy. The IRS tracks what I put in versus what it grew into.
Right.
So if I contribute $60,000 over a decade and the market grows that account to $100,000, I can pull that original $60,000 out whenever I want to fund my early retirement.
Yes, you can.
I just can't touch the $40,000 in earnings until I'm 59 and a half.
You've got it. The contributions act as a massive tax-free bridge. And while you are spending down your taxable accounts and your Roth contributions, you leave your traditional 401ks completely untouched.
Just compounding in the background.
Right, until that penalty wall drops at age 59 and a half.
It is a phenomenal strategy. Okay, so the financial architecture is solid, the taxes are modeled, the healthcare is funded, but actually walking into your boss's office and giving up a steady paycheck has to be a terrifying leap. How do you know you are actually ready?
Well, this is where the guide shifts from spreadsheets to behavioral psychology. Because the numbers might say you are ready, but your brain might not be.
That makes sense.
They outline several psychological metrics you need to meet.
Yeah.
The first is having your life purpose defined. You cannot just be running away from a toxic job. You must be running toward a compelling post-work life.
I imagine the friction between the fantasy of endless free time and the reality of just like a boring Tuesday morning is pretty severe.
Well, it's a huge adjustment.
If your entire identity was wrapped up in being a software engineer or a marketing director, the sudden loss of that title could easily trigger a depressive spiral.
It happens constantly. People retire and realize they have no idea who they are without their job. This ties into the next metric, which is community.
Right, because if all your friends are at the office, leaving your job means severing your primary social network.
Exactly. You need a guaranteed social ecosystem outside of your career. And if you have a partner or spouse, you need complete alignment on what this lifestyle looks like.
Oh, yeah. I can see that being a deal breaker.
Totally. If you have budgeted for a minimalist life in a rural cabin, but your spouse assumes early retirement means luxury cruises and five-star hotels, that friction will dismantle your financial plan very quickly.
So how do you actually stress test this before doing something permanent? I assume you shouldn't just quit cold turkey and hope for the best.
The guide strongly recommends practice runs. You road test the lifestyle. You take a month-long unpaid leave of absence. You negotiate a drop to a 3-day work week.
That's a great idea.
Or you force yourself to live strictly on your projected retirement budget for 6 full months while you are still employed, just to see if the constraints actually suit your personality.
Test driving the reality before you buy it. It proves that early retirement is an endurance event, not a sprint. It isn't about striking it rich overnight. It is about tiny, regular, highly disciplined optimizations snowballing over a decade or more.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean?
Synthesizing all these mechanisms, the core philosophy of this Ducascopy guide is that financial independence isn't merely hitting a static number in a bank account. It is a carefully engineered ecosystem.
An ecosystem.
Right. It requires balancing the ruthless mathematics of compound interest and tax codes with the messy, unpredictable realities of healthcare, inflation, and human psychology.
It's a balancing act.
But if you design that ecosystem correctly, you earn the ultimate prize. You secure the power to dictate how you spend your most finite resource, which is time.
Time. It always comes back to time. I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We talked heavily about the 4% rule and how it assumes your spending will adjust upward based on general inflation, which is usually tracked by the Consumer Price Index, or CPI.
Right.
But think about your personal inflation rate.
Oh, that's interesting.
If your dream early retirement relies heavily on frequent international travel and buying private healthcare on the open market, two sectors, where costs historically skyrocket much, much faster than the general cost of groceries or electronics, how might that hidden lifestyle inflation quietly shift the goalposts of your magic number?
It's a huge variable.
It is a variable you have to calculate for yourself because the standard national averages might not accurately reflect the cost of your specific dream.
Spot on.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep running those numbers, keep questioning the default path, and who knows, maybe one random Tuesday afternoon, it will be you packing up that desk for the very last time.